this evening is the agenda approval. Are there any additions, changes to the agenda before we do that? Councillor Frey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just some housekeeping items again on page 18. If staff could clarify, I believe it's supposed to be Kitchener Street, not Gattaker Street. On the first paragraph there, where it goes to OCP, such that lots 11 and 17, and it says Gattaker Street, but I believe the OCP recommendation is for Kitchener.
Third to last line of the first paragraph on that page. Any others? Nope. So I'll get a motion to approve the agenda with the correction. Moved by Councillor Arnett. Seconded by Councillor Frayden. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. No items to rise with the report this evening. Moving on to minutes. 4.1 minutes of the regular council meeting on January 15th, 2018, pages 1 through 6. There's no changes, omissions, or errors. Get a motion to adopt. Councillor Friesenhan, seconded by Councillor Hutchins. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. 4.2 minutes of the special meeting of council held January 16th, 2018, page 7 in the agenda package. Moved by Councillor Arnett. Seconded by Councillor Patterson. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. And 4.3 minutes of regular meeting of council held February 5th, 2018, page 8 in the agenda package. Moved by Councillor Frayden, seconded by Councillor Friesenhan. All those in favor? Opposed? Opposed? Motion carries. That was a short meeting due to travel and illness, so it was not a oversight on anyone's part. It was, we had two away on a much advance notice time away, and then we unfortunately had two people sick on the same day, so we didn't have a quorum. Very rare occurrence, and doesn't happen often. I think it's probably not happened in 10 years. So here we are tonight on a Tuesday. All right, so moving on to what will be the highlight of our evening. It's all downhill from here. No, I'm kidding. Our delegation, Mid-Isle Soccer Club, regarding the Mini World Cup, May 4th through 6th. If you'd like to take the podium, we'll make sure you're all mic'd up and good to go. Welcome.
We would like to thank you for having us as a delegation. We are representing Mid-Isle Soccer. I'm Jennifer LeBlanc, and this is Jeremy Kay. I handed out a sheet for you. So this is an annual tournament that goes on the island every year. Mid-Isle hosted in 2012, and it was a very successful tournament. We have heard back from other since then that we have had the best one, so we want to do that again. We like being the best. So this is a U8 to U11, so fairly young kids. There's going to be, or last time was 100 teams. Teams are minimum of 6, maximum of 10, so approximately 1,000 players if we can get the 100 teams we had last time. And because they're young, that means parents and probably siblings as well. So our community will grow quite largely that day. So we would like to ask for a couple things for help. We have gotten permission to use the trolley, but we would like to see if you guys would be willing to help us pay the driver, because that is going to be a huge cost for 2 days of a trolley driver all day long. As well, Parks and Rec has approved camping at Transfer Beach, and we might need help with the logistics of how that's going to work out, as well as helping with the traffic and parking for all those people that are going to be in town. So just a few things to run down on what we're going to have, as it's on the sheet, but there's going to be spaghetti dinner hosted by the Eagles. There's going to be a pancake breakfast. That was Eagles also? Yep. Eagles as well as a parade of nations, which all the teams are given a different country to represent, and different areas are given the same color T-shirts as they play the tournament. They are awarded points, and then they actually have a winner and a loser. Well, not loser, winning region. So it's a fun tournament. It's not not competitive. Well, it is. We hope a little bit. So with the different fields, that's why we have the trolley. There's going to be Forest Field, Frank Jameson, LSS, LIS, LPS, Holland Creek. So that's why we choose the trolley, to help keep less cars on the road at the time. Each of the kids will receive a T-shirt. They usually get a goodie bag. Our president of Mid-Isle is going to be reaching out to all the businesses on First Avenue and explaining what's happening, and perhaps getting coupons, things that they can put in the goodie bag, so that will bring the people into their businesses. So if any of you have any questions, we would love to answer them.
Okay, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you. I just remember seeing the last meeting really talked about parks and it is the kids playing soccer at the farmers markets. The parade is actually at the Forest Field. It's not going to be.
Oh, no. It's on the field. Sorry.
So there really is no interruption to.
No. No.
Your question about assistance with parking and traffic congestion.
I wasn't part of the committee last year, or pardon me, in 2012. So we were just told that you guys had helped directing to where they could park and stuff like that. So Willow, our kind of committee head, she is actually away in Alberta this week, but we were able to grab the chance to come tonight. So I can't actually speak to how you guys helped out with that. Yeah.
Yeah, or our community groups may help as well.
Yeah.
So are you good? Okay, Councillor Arnett.
I'll just say, first of all, I believe that we handled the parking much the way we do with Light Up, in terms of trying to get the cars out of town for the most part, if I remember correctly, that we did some help with that, and that the trolley actually did a lot of the coordination, making sure that people could get from one field, because your games are at different fields,
Yes. Yeah.
right? Of
Yeah.
course, so the logistics are fairly crazy. I just want you to know that I was here for 2012, been involved all my life in mini World Cup as my kids were growing up. The crowd that came here in 2012, I think the feedback we had from the business community was fairly outstanding, and the parents spending money and buying food and all of that. And for this town, that was the biggest single sporting event I think that we'd ever had. Brought us a lot of recognition, and it was actually one of the foundations on our push for sports tourism as one of our focuses for economic development in this town. So you'll have my support with your request. We'll work out the logistics. That's both for love of the beautiful game, but it also has a very significant economic development impact, and that was recorded last time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I also have fond memories of 2012. It was our first major sporting event on the new turf field that had been opened the year before. But I just want to talk about camping. Last time I recall, there were 25 RVs in the parking lot, maybe 35 above the amphitheater. They were all in kind of a big horseshoe or circle. Is that what you're talking about? Are you talking about RV camping?
Yes. That is
And I
what
thought
we're-
also camping near where the horseshoe fields are.
Yeah, we didn't have that. It wasn't that called for last time. We just had the. But I mean, is that what you're
I
asking for?
think as much camping as we can have, that would be good.
And I recall Monroe from Robert Street Pizza saying it was the single largest sale of pizza to a single event, because everybody in the camping area bought pizza that night, and somebody went and picked it up, or they had it delivered or something. Anyway. I honestly, have no memory of us helping with the parking and traffic, so I'd like to have some more details on that. And I remember being so spread out. I remember having to park on between 5th and 6th along probably Baden-Powell to get to the field, but I don't remember it was a big issue because we were fortunate to spread it all out throughout the community. So we don't have any recommendations before us, so I'm just wondering what we're asked to do tonight.
So, Your Worship, my understanding is staff is already dealing with offering camping and transfer beach, and also with transporting nets, and also with parking and traffic congestion as well. So Clayton is already dealing with that already, so there's no really request for council tonight. I believe the only request that we have tonight is to deal with the cost of the trolley, and my recommendation would be that you do that through a grants and aid application.
So, thank you. Just timing-wise, when does our grant aids come to council?
March?
Early March, okay. So that gives us time to get you guys all tucked away. I was going to say if there is a resolution to support it in principle, then we'd say through the grant aid budget, because that's what it is. But if we refer it to grant aid, get the cost of that and have that vote on council, I think that's moved by Councilor Arnett. Support the trolley. Your second.
Yeah, and just a quick question for the, how long during the day would you anticipate? Oh, sorry. How many hours each day would you anticipate the trolley?
I think our games are going to be
8 to 6.
starting at 9 and ending at 4:30. So 8 hours.
About 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So, I'll call the question, I guess, unless anybody has questions about it. I'll call the question on the trolley thing. Go ahead.
Just a quick question. I know the Ball Association requested the trolley for their tournament that they had here, and looking at the ridership, there was actually nobody using it. And I was just wondering if in 2012 if the trolley was used extensively, or
I heard that it was used quite a bit. Yeah, so.
okay.
Yeah,
With that
so-
many people, I think that, yeah, especially the people camping and stuff,
Yeah.
people chose to use the trolley as opposed to driving. There's could be upwards of 3,000 people in the town from out of town. So.
I just wanted to comment, that was in fact the single biggest sports event we ever had here. So ball tournaments are great, they bring quite a number of people, but they don't bring 3,000 people.
Thank you. From experience, I was part of it. I was a coach. Actually kicked off my short but illustrious mid-isle soccer coaching career. What a great way to grab people into the program. And I'm talking about parents into coaching. So when Luella asks, why did Aaron coach me? You can blame mid-isle soccer's World Cup. But it was probably one of the greatest experiences I've had as an adult and as a parent. To be able to coach your kids like that is so fun that it was more about the spectacle. All our kids, we went home after the first night and all got like colored spray paint. Tyson shaved his head in a mohawk and we were called Dynamite, so we all had red shirts on, and our thing was we get together and then we go boom and we all fall down, right? So and we did walk and took the trolley a couple times. We took the trolley from Forest Field to LIS, and then we walked in like sort of a parade of crazy kids from LIS up to LPS for the next game. So we combined it, and then we also, well, we did drive to Forest Field and then kind of just made our way around after that. But yeah, it was such a great experience, and you know, I definitely will get out there to see it, and I'll miss that a lot, because that was the single best coaching and parental experience I think I had with my kid and so many other great kids. So that being said, I don't see any more hands or any names on my list. So basically the resolution here is to support in principle the use of the trolley for the weekend and refer the costing to the grants and aid discussion in early March. And that's been moved and seconded. So all those in favor? Opposed? Opposed, motion carries. Thank
So
you guys
Aaron,
so much.
did you
Yeah.
want us to do a grant and aid application for that then?
Yeah, we'll work.
Okay.
work through it.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And you can stay till the end, or you can go if you like.
I do have things I have to do.
Yeah.
They always do.
If you're into self-abuse, you can stay.
Jeremy's like sits down awkwardly. You don't have to stay, buddy. You got a family at home. You can always say, my family's at home. It's bath time. Good night. All right, moving on in the agenda, proclamations. Exciting time for us. Heritage Week is coming up. So February 19th to 25th is Heritage Week in the town of Ladysmith, and I encourage all residents to celebrate the meaningful, essential, and enduring nature of our cultural heritage, and take a little opportunity to experience Canada's greatest street for 2017 and enjoy everything that we have to offer. Go on the Heritage Walk too, that's a good one. We actually have an interesting item on the agenda that refers to one of the items on that walk. In the higher numbers, we can do some cleanup down there, and it's nice to see the volunteers working so hard down at the machine shop area. Okay, so that's page 11. Page 12 to 15, development applications, item 7.1, development variance permit application for 12 White Street, Block Anderson. Recommendation is that council direct staff to proceed with statutory notice for development variance permit application 3090-17-05 for lot 14, block 12, district lot 56, Whistler District Plan 703, also known as 12 White Street. Moved by Councillor Arnett, seconded by Councillor Patterson. So just for clarity, this is a small 2 square meter variance because of the lot size. Councillor Hutchins.
Yeah, so that begs the question. When we went through the coach house, it was intended that the city lots within the downtown core, at least the majority of them, would fit into this, and this is why it was determined as 668 square meters, which was 60 by 120. So how many lots in the downtown core are under 668?
Sorry, we wouldn't know that information. We'd have to pull a survey of every property, and some of those properties are, haven't got a proper survey on them, and so when the property owner comes forward, we learn this information.
So if we go through a public process with the intent of respecting the size, intending for them to be that size, but they're within 2 square meters, so we obviously, as a council, and then we took it to the public, we made an error, and the law was written not as we intended it, because it was supposed to be permissive for that lot. So should we not be changing the bylaw, or should we not allow staff to have some flexibility that if it's in 5% of that intended size of what that is, because there must be a charge to this individual to come forward, and so there's an injustice here, because this is not the intention. That we went through a really, really good public process that was stellar, and yet we made a mistake here. So how do we undo this? I mean, we could choose to waive the variance cost because it wasn't the intended outcome. So can we do that? Can we undo this and actually say no, change the law so it's 668 square meters or 665 square meters? Because the intention was to allow those lots on the laneways to have it. So which is a better process?
I couldn't answer which is a better process rate at this moment, but I think if that's what council would like, if you would like to refer that to staff, we could make a recommendation on what's the best way forward to ensure that this kind of situation didn't arise.
Can I just jump in just because I think it's, I guess my question, and I'm not sure if this is what you're getting at, from a process point of view, going through all this variance process, if we were to assign some kind of a variable, like say within 2% or something like that, or change 668 to 660, because that provides a little fudge room, if you will, is that significantly more work than going through this notice process? Then we would have to have a public hearing, would we not, for this variance? So if we're talking about making a minor adjustment that, like almost like a housekeeping to the zoning bylaw,
Not, you
That's-
wouldn't need a public hearing for a variance, but for a bylaw amendment,
Right.
you would need a public
So
hearing.
It is more process, obviously.
But,
Okay, sorry, I'll let you finish before, and then I go to Councillor Arnett.
but there is still a statutory requirement for a public process for the variance. How much longer is it if we said change the bylaw?
This would be faster, but if you're interested in moving forward on a bylaw amendment, then we could look at what would be possible for this particular property owner in the short term. Because I think what I'm hearing you say is we would like to move forward with that. That was the intention. We don't want people to be stuck in this situation. How do we make that happen?
Yeah. So how do I put that into a motion?
So I think we probably
Just
allow them
refer
to
this-
move forward with this and then make a referral to staff to make minor housekeeping amendments on the zoning bylaw to provide limited flexibility or something, to see what comes back.
So if we pass this, would we waive the fee in a separate motion, or does it have to be part of this motion?
Your worship, you can waive the fee, but this is the fee that is being charged based on the bylaw that you created.
But with all respect, it was not the bylaw we intended to create and went through a very thorough and really well done public process.
I agree. What I'm trying to say that there may be other residents that they've been in this situation before, and those may come forward asking you for that reimbursement as well.
If we made a mistake in the past, we've always corrected it.
Okay, so I'm gonna let that point stand for a moment and go to Councillor Arnett, and we'll resume that debate later.
Well, I'm in absolute agreement with what Councillor Hutchins was saying. That the intent of this process was to provide opportunity to increase density downtown, provide affordable housing in a more possible sense, to rejuvenate the downtown, and the number in terms of the parcel size was based on best practice. I think, if I remember correctly, in terms of kind of a standard that many other communities adhere to. I think, was that not correct? And then the other thing for me was, the reason why I moved the motion was, after reading it, it was that context, and I always felt there should be not discretion in terms of undermining the standard, but enough discretion that we are not rigid in terms of defeating the very purpose of, as what Councillor Hudson pointed out, that we were trying to get as a result, which was, as I said, higher density, etc. Thanks.
So I don't have anyone on my speakers list, but because I know at the CBRD, when they provide some of development permits, obviously very different situation, but there's wording in their bylaws to say there's some discretion by staff within the intent of the bylaw or something like that. That's the motion that they always put forward. So I'm not sure. Obviously, there's nothing we can do by resolution at this table to sort of get through that 2 square meter quandary. But the only concern I have about waiving fees is that there's some work that we're looking at right now that's involved by staff, and then the statutory process we have to go through, the noticing and stuff like that. So if we absorb that cost this time, I think we have to make sure we're expedient on updating the bylaw then, so we don't end up sort of, finding out that we've got 7 or 8 of these in the pipeline and end up waiving fees, and staff's doing that work, and we're not getting some return on that work. But that's just me. Councillor Hutchins, you're up again.
So, you or your staff have obviously met with this individual, and is this time sensitive for them? Like, I mean, is this?
They understand the process, and they have a big project that they're doing on the property. They're raising up the house as well as wanting to do a coach house, so it is a staged project, so they understand the timing
This
and
is
of the
project
variance.
raising the house, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I'll be voting against this motion because if we cannot guarantee that we would be supportive of not charging this individual for a variance that he shouldn't be going through, I think what we should do is inform him that we're going to correct the bylaw as quickly as we can, and then he would be able to proceed without a variance. So he does have a big project, and this, in my mind, he wouldn't be starting that until the house is finished.
So I would just make a recommendation instead of us voting against this. We can give subsequent notice to staff, but this gives them an opportunity to, if there are parts of this project that are tied to lifting the house or whatever, that they can move forward, or, because it just strikes me as odd that this would be here if it wasn't somewhat time sensitive to the staff.
Could I make a suggestion? If you dealt with this by saying, yes, go ahead with statutory notice, but also subsequently give us direction to look at changing the bylaw, and then this particular applicant could decide, does the timing work for me or not? And so they could choose to not proceed any further because of the bylaw change coming, or if it was time sensitive for them, they could keep on the path they're on.
That's great advice. But yeah, I wish I was thinking that. But if he chooses not to proceed because he doesn't need it right away, and he wastes, does he have to pay $750 or $1,500, whatever it is?
For the zoning, the town would, if that's something that council is, if he stopped right now, we would look at what would be a reasonable return for his application fee, if he wasn't going to proceed with his application.
No, I got it.
Okay, Councillor Anderson.
No, I was just going to say, if he's doing a big project, maybe he's going to be using the same
services, equipment, etc. in parallel, so that he doesn't have to bring people in twice. So it may be more time sensitive than it looks.
So I don't see any more discussion. This has been moved and seconded. Is it moved and seconded? No. Okay. So we don't have a yeah.
Yes, it was.
Okay. So that's what I thought.
Duck in.
Yeah. Thought so.
Yeah.
Okay. So moved by Steve, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Councillor Duck. Any further discussion on it? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Councillor Hutchins.
I'd like to move that we request staff to revisit the. Is there a specific bylaw that's referenced in here?
Yeah. Sorry?
Zoning bylaw?
Yeah.
Regarding to coach houses in the center of the town, to determine, what was the language we used? The either flexibility or discretion of appropriate discretion to respect the vast majority or honor the vast majority of the sizes of the lots in the small in the old town core. Amend to provide discretion to staff.
Is anybody clear on what that motion was? Me neither.
We want me to write it
No,
Okay.
if
to bring forward a revision in the bylaw,
Yeah.
zoning bylaw, to accommodate appropriate size of.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
To permit discretion within the original intent of the bylaw with respect to carriage houses in the downtown
I thought I said that.
That's what I said. If she reads it back, it'll sound like it makes sense. So that's been moved by Councillor Hutchins, seconded by Councillor Arnett. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? None opposed, motion carried. All right, the next one is the OCP and zoning bylaw amendment application, Kitchener Street, High Namath. Subject property lots 7 and 8, block 7, district lot 24, Oyster District Plan 703. And that's 11 and 17 Kitchener Street. And the recommendation is that council consider application to amend A, the OCP by designate 11 and 17 Kitchener Street from downtown mixed use to downtown core, and B, the zoning bylaw by rezoning 11 and 17 Kitchener Street from live work residential R2LW to downtown commercial C2 for properties legally described as above. direct staff to commence preparation of the official community plan amendment bylaw and zoning amendment bylaw for application 336018-01, 11 and 17 Kitchener Street. Moved by Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor Friesenhand. Discussion. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I really would like to congratulate the owner of the property for stepping forward and showing faith in the community by redeveloping that whole area. I think it speaks very highly of the direction the community is going. I'm just wondering why in any of the recommendations it's not referred to heritage as well. Is that not in the...
The Advisory Planning Commission has a representative from Heritage that goes to those meetings when there's applications like this in the downtown. That's the way the terms of reference for the design panel are structured. So Heritage is involved through that process.
If I can just, because again, I'm really happy to see the growth and the new building. This building pictured here doesn't really speak a whole lot of heritage to me, but hopefully in time it will.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Councillor Hutchins.
But this is just a rezoning application. This is not, because this has to go to the advisory design panel. If it's form and character, it goes to heritage and advisory design panel. If it's land use, it goes to APC. So we're not approving this.
Specific design is just for illustrative purposes.
Okay.
This isn't the part where we would ever refer to heritage. We would refer it during the next stage, which is the development permit part of the application. This is zoning and OCP. Councillor Arnett.
Oh, the conversation that preceded my comments are, I think, demonstrate we're thrilled about having new investment in the community, and the confidence that speaks to our present and our future. The plan for us in terms of the process is to meet all of the things that we have in place, whether it's heritage standards, etc. But to do that in a way, given our direction, to make absolutely sure that people understand that we're open for business.
Points, thank you. Saves my turn on the mic. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Thank you for coming out. You're welcome to stay. No bylaws this evening, and the committee reports. I know I'm not supposed to say anything because I didn't put the hand in my report.
Thank you.
We do have an ECDEV meeting tomorrow with our group that's working under CVRD Economic Development, and we're starting some tourism planning as well. And the CVRD had the QP agreement ratified last week. So labor peace for 4 years at the CVRD, 4-year agreement, so the longest in the region. Moving on, Councillor Hutchins.
Thank you. Yes, I have two reports. The first is from Heritage and Revitalization Advisory Commission. The committee considered the City of Victoria Tax Incentive Program and a request from staff to actually amend their work plan for the year. And as you can see, the motion that they supported, it was moved and seconded and carried that the Heritage Revitalization Advisory Commission supports deferring the heritage inventory, a long-awaited for project, for at least 1 more year, and use that funds to help with the tax incentive bylaw, which is considered by municipal services. So as you can see on item number B on page 21 is a three recommendations. The council requests staff to prepare a report on options to offset eligible seismic upgrading costs for historic buildings in the downtown core, and to include the number of buildings affected in tax implications. Now, I'm not quite sure why that was limited to seismic, because it was supposed to be including fire suppression as well, which the Victoria does. Can staff help me on that one?
I thought Victoria did seismic.
No, they did seismic and fire suppression.
Didn't you take this up and submit it?
No.
Oh.
But I did review it, and I didn't catch that.
Sorry.
But we'll...
Victoria bylaw coming to municipal services, and it had fire and seismic?
No?
Nobody...
I can't remember your worship, but I can check.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll we'll move what we have there. And number 2, the council give first, second, and third reading to the Town of Ladysmith Streets and Traffic Bylaw 1998, number 1309, Amendment Bylaw number 5, 2017, number 1941, as amended to include boulevard to the definition of highway and to remove any reference to recreational vehicle size. And number 3, the council support proactive bylaw compliance on unattached trailers in accordance with the Town of Ladysmith Streets and Traffic Bylaw 1998, number 1309, due to potential liability risks. I'd like to move 1, 2, and 3.
Go ahead, Councillor. Are you seconding?
Yeah.
Councillor Patterson seconding. Speakers list. Councillor Arnett.
Well, with respect to point 3,
Mr. Chair, I wonder if I could,
Yeah.
if you're just dealing with, I should have asked if they should be pulled.
I was going to say
Yeah.
maybe we should do them in serial.
okay.
Okay, I'd like to move number 1 then.
Okay, thank you. We got a seconder for number 1. Seconded by Councillor Patterson. Discussion on number 1. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
I'd like to move number 2.
All right.
As
Moved by
previously read.
Councillor Hutchins, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Discussion on number 2. Thank you, Councillor Arnett.
So number 2 ties into number 3, and I'm not comfortable voting for either one of them until we had a report back, as I understood, that we had given direction for with respect to public consultation. And so can somebody tell me where we're at with
Yeah,
that?
I'll step in. My recollection was that after third reading, wasn't there going to be some engagement process around, but there's no information here, so I can't speak to that.
I think, if I may, I think this was, if staff would recommend a slight change in the wording that that council direct staff to amend the bylaw and bring it back, as opposed to giving first, second, and third reading under number 2. And to speak to, staff are also in the process of preparing a communications plan, and that will be coming back to council as well. So the bylaw will not be going forward until council has seen the communications plan. That was your direction.
Yeah,
so that
the
is a
direction was to change things based on our municipal services discussion
Correct.
from what we had drafted.
Bring back the
Bring
draft.
it back and the communications plan. So thanks for sure.
Thank you very much.
So then the
shouldn't be
resolution
dealing with
agreed
this.
that council gives staff direction to amend the bylaw, or to amend the Town of Ladysmith Streets traffic bylaw, so on and so forth.
Period.
Period. And then at the end of it. So it's just changing the beginning that council directs staff to amend the Town of Ladysmith Streets and traffic bylaw.
To
amendment.
include boulevard to definition of highway.
Yeah.
Okay. Get rid of the word as amended. So, Mr. Mayor, I would recommend that we defeat the present motion and then rewrite.
Just clean it. Okay. Well, we don't have to, we just call the question on the motion and defeat it, but that's a good one. All those in favor?
What the hell are we doing?
We're defeating the motion so we
Okay.
can
The
get a
first
clean
motion.
Okay.
All those against? So we're defeating the
Oh,
motion?
defeating them.
The motion is defeated, barely.
Okay, so I'd like to move that we direct staff to amend the Town of Ladysmith Streets and Traffic Bylaw 1998 to number 1309, Amendment Bylaw number 5, to include boulevard to the definition of highway and to remove any reference to recreational vehicle size.
Your Worship?
Yes.
If council will recall, the original intent of that bylaw was to bring some amendments, and when you discuss it at municipal services, you had made further amendments, so I would recommend leaving in as amended. How many amendments can I get in one sentence?
Okay. So are we amending the Town of Ladysmith? Read it out as we should have it.
The council directs staff to amend Town of Ladysmith Streets and Traffic Bylaw 1998, number 1309, Amendment Bylaw number 5, as amended, to include boulevard to the definition of highway and to remove any reference to recreational vehicle size.
Okay.
Yeah, it's as clear as mud. If we added as amended in the municipal services committee meeting, it would be clearer, but still make Bill's email make more sense to himself, because he was like, what are you guys doing? We weren't quite sure, Bill, until just now.
But,
And I'm
I'll
not
move
quite
that.
sure.
So that's moved by Councillor Hutchins. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Arnett. So the net result of this is that we'll get an amended version of the bylaw amendments to the table with a communications plan, and then we'll move the first, second, and third reading and go through the process. Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, is number 3 now redundant?
Yes.
I believe so.
Thank you.
No.
No, Your Worship.
No, it's not, because this is the existing bylaw, and this is talking about, I just
Proactive
saw
bylaw
another one today,
compliance.
around the detached trailers.
Yes.
And if I may though, I'd like to add one thing to the wording that's due to potential safety and liability risks. Because the issue is that there are documented cases of serious accidents happening with unattached trailers on boulevards and roadsides. And I just passed one again this morning on Rocky Creek Road, facing the wrong way with its trailer hitch pointing forward, unhooked. And if somebody wasn't paying attention and hit that head on, it could be an ugly situation. So
Okay, so I'd like to move that bylaw as written with the words to potential safety and liability risks.
thank you. Seconded by Councillor Arnett. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I had a question.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Patterson and Councillor Arnett.
Again, this, it was my understanding with respect to this, we had a fair discussion on health and safety, and I got that part, but believed that despite the fact that you cite the your latest experience, Mayor, that this also tied into going to our residents and polling them as to where they were on this. And a big part of that was because that we are talking about a major change in lifestyle in terms of the town. Health and safety are non-negotiable, I understand that, but we seem to be taking a hammer to a situation that maybe we could be more discreet with. Thanks.
Thank you. Just, and not necessarily rebuttal, just in contrast though, this is an existing bylaw that's on the books right now, that detached trailers, and it's specifically under the section under commercial trailers. It says that detached trailers are not to be parked on the boulevard or on the roadside on a highway, as our current bylaw stands. So this was about enforcing those safety concerns from my perspective, and based on what you said, to me, safety risks like that are non-negotiable. It's not about liability for me. We have insurance, whether or not they would cover us if somebody was hurt badly. Again, I'm not sure if it's happened in our community, but detached commercial trailers especially parked throughout our community are providing a benefit to, you know, and again, you know, we're getting into splitting hairs with semantics, but I see where you're coming from. We're talking about somebody's RV parked on the side of the road, and I'm seeing it differently, but this was about our existing bylaw and proactive enforcement. Councillor Hutchins.
No, you took the words right out of my mouth. Question on the motion.
No further discussion. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Arnett opposed. The motion carries. Moving on to 9.3. Thank you, Councillor Hutchins and staff for that exciting tour through framing the motion. Councillor Henderson, your report's on page 22, 23. Did you want to highlight anything for us? There were some highlights in there.
I think I'm able to speak to this, although I just read an unauthored report back that the BC Ambulance Service that's referred to in the first point of the agenda item there did in fact gain 2 positions. And the other thing that was referred to by the unit chief was a program that's going to be put into play where some of the paramedics will be able to just do unsolicited house visits to check in on frail seniors. Engineers.
So, go ahead. I know I just basically broke the rules because the point of his reports were not to recite them, but I broke the rules, so highlights.
Yeah, and that was just more an addition. And the other thing that I've had emphasized recently is from the Ladysmith Community Justice Program that indeed they will be approaching council at some stage to talk about possibility of working using restorative justice approaches in bylaw infractions.
We had some offline discussion about that, but it's a good group of people with good experience, and restorative justice can often provide a happy ending to not a great situations at times. Okay, so moving on to Councillor Patterson, he's got recommendations, so pages 23 through 25, 24 to 25, and there's recommendations on the next page of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I typed them out myself. From Parks, Recreation and Culture, recommendation number 1, approve the Rotary Club's proposed improvements to Forest Field to include grandstand improvements, player bench improvements, and facility improvements. Number 2, engage with past members of the Field Steering Committee and current field user groups executives to complete a comprehensive review of the existing draft site plan, taking into account possible changes to trends, demographics, and community needs to best determine the location and design concept for the proposed clubhouse concession. And from the last meeting, that Council directs staff to draft a community-driven capital project policy for Council's approval that will provide clarity for community groups, staff, and public regarding the process to determine the feasibility of a community-driven capital project and manage expectations of the parties involved if projects are supported. So I'll move those.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Arnett.
Well, can we do the
We should probably move
Separate?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
number 1 moved by, seconded by Councillor Arnett. Discussion on number 1. Councillor Hutchins.
So, in number 1, I understand what grandstand improvements are. I understand what player bench improvements are. But as facility improvements, if we pass number 1, are we approving the location and design concept of the proposed clubhouse that we saw before? No. So what is the facilities improvements they're referring to?
He's gonna tell us.
He's looking at you. Mr. Posting.
Uh,
I think
okay.
number 1 and 2 actually are designed to go together. If I look at them.
Fencing in a practice area.
Yeah, the number 1, the way that the request was placed from the Mid-Island Rotary, the facility improvements were mostly based on the practice pitch area, as well as the grandstand and the player bench area improvements. So they're just a wording from their request related to facility improvements in regards to a practice pitch area there, a small area that would be off the side where players could warm up before they actually enter. So that is different than what is discussed. What the committee discussed in number 2 was basically more on the concession and the building side of the request, and the request for a concession meeting space. So the facility improvements in this one are not directly relating to the actual building. It's the smaller requests that they talked about, facility improvements such as the practice pitch area there.
I feel like I'm having deja vu. Like, I feel like we had a very similar discussion.
So can we not say, like we were quite specific about grandstand improvements and player bench improvements, why wouldn't we say practice pitch improvements? Facility improvements is very broad.
You can put into the motion, Your Worship.
Okay, I'd like to amend facility improvements to player field, no, what's it called? Practice pitch improvements.
Does that stay with the intent of the recommendation from the committee?
Your Worship, I believe that it does. That was the intent there, to separate the facility piece.
everything that came to council and was referred to Parks and Rec is included in that, except for the clubhouse proposal, and that is item number 2. So whatever was in there.
Item number 1 now, so
Yeah.
I just want to be clear with staff. Do we need to amend the moved and seconded resolution, or is that a friendly amendment? We're just changing facility to practice pitch.
If we move it and the second are okay with that amendment, then yeah.
So that's moved and seconded. Any further discussion on number 1 as amended? None. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Number 2, moved by Councillor Arnett, seconded by Councillor Patterson. council is sort of getting the dream team back together. Good. So that got out a little bit, my fault. Can't keep a secret. But I've had several conversations with people, and I know that Councillor Arnett's pretty committed to this as well. I did have Councillor Hutchinson first on the list, and then Councillor.
So you want me to talk about that?
So what is the intention of the aftermath of the engagement? So it says engage and to complete a comprehensive review, and to best determine the location and design concept. So they come up with a design concept.
I believe that the intent here from the committee, and Councillor Patterson may clarify this, but it was similar to what Council's perspective was, that the site of a building needs to be reviewed prior to it being located, and it needs to be considered with the future plans of the site. So where playing fields will be, what the entire site looks like. So basically, the committee had recommended that a site review be looked at prior to the approval of any buildings placed on the site, because obviously the building is the most difficult thing to move compared to the other improvements that were discussed in number 1 there. And so it was to look at the entire site and review the entire site and what that looks like.
So can I add a friendly amendment just to add the words for council's consideration? Well, I'm not quite sure. It's kind of a...
Based on the motion. So you can add it for council consideration. And if that's okay with that. And then, sorry.
So Your Worship, just for clarification as well for council consideration, but we'll put a report back on that report about capacity as well, because we really don't know. This is not part of the work plan as it exists right now.
And I know we had some discussions as council about some council-driven projects. This was on that list. Well, one way you controlled it. So we can have further discussions. So I would ask that staff, as you discuss this in terms of capacity, that you include myself, and I don't know if I can volunteer you, Councillor Arnett, to be involved in that discussion. And of course, as PRC member, Councillor Patterson, you would be involved as well. So it can be the ones to bounce things off of. So when you're discussing that and you want to give feedback, maybe in between council meetings or whatever, you can include the 3 of us. That would be helpful. Councillor Arnett.
Okay, well, I think this is really exciting. I had the privilege of being part of the process that the former mayor literally motivated the community on making a couple of critical things happen around people being displaced to their homes, and as a result we housed people and we ended up with force fields. So it just was an extraordinary experience. One of the things that we really got out of this, with the commitment and the type of volunteers, was this wasn't just a social endeavor. It wasn't just about well-being and community health, which are really high priorities, but that there was a context and an opportunity here to tie it to sports tourism in a very planned and committed way, using the conceptual marketing notions, the things that we know in terms of features of facilities and an ability to host large capacities of people. And so I don't want that piece to get forgotten in this, that is almost a byproduct. We didn't mean it to be a byproduct, but it was a byproduct of the first part of the process, and then we realized, and of course the CVRD itself has a focus on sports tourism in all it's doing. So I think it's important that we mention that at the table, and that any move further, people understand that context is there to get value for money out of this great social investment as well.
And I think that was echoed in some of the events that we're hosting this year, not just at Forest Field, but throughout the community for the BC Summer Games. so number 3, always concerned when I see a resolution from a committee to direct staff, recommend that council direct staff. Did you want to read that one out again, Councillor Patterson?
Sure. That council directs staff to draft a community-driven capital project policy for council's approval that will provide clarity for community groups, staff, and the public regarding the process to determine the feasibility of a community-driven capital project and manage expectations of the parties involved if projects are supported. And this actually came from a presentation by a member who had a copy of the Saanich procedures and how they work and fund projects that are coming forward from the community.
So what they did is, did they not almost have like a list of capital projects that could be taken up by the community? And then, are you talking about a policy?
It's actually, yeah.
Your Worship, the committee member had recommended this as more of a policy, and it allows the guidelines for community groups, because it's similar to what Mid-Isle and Rotary are requesting here. There's been many of these, from baseball to other, community groups, and they ask, and so this policy outlines a process, and and council would review that process and make sure that that makes sense in the sense of what they can expect, what they need to deliver to council in the sense of information to help make decisions. So it's more of a guideline policy. I mean, the one that was used as an example was one in Saanich, and it's a one-page document that just says, here's some of the criteria that we would like to see presented before you fire something across council's table saying, this is something we'd like to be considered. So it's a guideline more than it doesn't hold fast.
The question that I have is, this is within staff's capacity to deliver something like this? Well, he just said there's one sheeter that he.
We'll see what we can borrow.
Well, and it's okay to learn from other communities.
Yeah.
We've been there before, and it's been quite successful. We also see when communities forge out on their own, sometimes they stumble, and we can learn from them as well.
We're putting the work by Your Worship. Yeah.
That's the other question I had, Councillor Hutchins.
So policies are powerful governance tools, but I would ask if, in the investigation of the Saanich model, did it promote and foster community investment in community amenities?
We can leave that under advisement for staff, I believe. Or
No,
is it
that's
rhetorical?
no, it's a question, because I can just when we in 1999 when we decided to remake Transfer Beach, and the Kinsmen stepped up with a playground with a host of other people, and the Eagles stepped up with some stairs, and the Lions Club stepped up with a rose garden, and the Rotary Club stepped up with a thing. And the volleyball court and the basketball court and the amphitheater, we didn't have such a policy, and we had something like $750,000 investment in a short space of time, and about $140,000 came from the community, from the taxpayer, and the rest came from the community at large. So this, I can see this would be useful, but as long as it is crafted in such a way that it actually encourages rather than discourages.
Facilitates rather than.
We will be
Again,
getting a
was that
copy of
advice, or was
Saanich's,
that
right?
a question?
Yeah.
Well, no, because if they're going to ask for the copy, just say staff to staff, like, how's it going down there? Have you had any use of this
I
policy?
think that document can be powerful if it helps shape and find success for them.
Yes.
But then it can be frustrating and just deter community investment, right? So I think
That would be part of the conversation, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? We talked about everything so long. Did someone move and second that one, number 3?
No, we didn't.
Moved and seconded by Councillor Fraden, moved by Councillor Arnett. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? None opposed, motion carries. So next is Councillor Friesenhand's reports 26 through 28. Anything you want to highlight there, Mr. Friesenhand, or just it's all there? Councillor Fraden, pages 29 through 30, and there is a recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The recommendation from Protective Services is that Council, through resolution, confirm the membership of the Ladysmith Royal Canadian Marine Search and Rescue Station 29 to the Protective Services Committee. I think this would be a very benefit for the committee, and it's probably long overdue, I would assume.
So they have been members of the committee?
Mr. Chair, they haven't been this.
So Councillor Braden moves that, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Councillor Ahmed.
Well, Mayor, since we've broken protocol or process on, I did not put in a report because there were no meetings of my committees other than the AGM for the Vancouver Island Library Board, and those reports are come out and are distributed. But I would advise Council that I am now the Vice President of the board.
Oh, congratulations. Thank you. Well, I don't know who to congratulate, you or them, but we'll see.
Vice President of?
Library.
Oh, well done. That's a big portfolio.
Excellent. Moving on to reports. 10.1, appointment of elected officials, pages, election officials, not elected officials. We can't just...
Ooh.
Appointment of election officials, I guess it is that year.
So moved.
31 through 33, and you see the list there, moved by Councillor Hutchins, seconded by Councillor Fraden. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? None opposed, motion carried. 10.2, waterfront area plan, direction to repair bylaws, pages 34 through 39. Two recommendations. The first is that Council direct staff to proceed with the preparation of bylaws to amend the official community plan bylaw 2013 number 1488 to implement the new waterfront area plan and development permit area 1 maritime, and number 2 zoning bylaw 2014 number 1860 to implement the zoning for the initial development phase of the area of lot 4 known as the Jewel to permit a multi-unit residential development as outlined in the waterfront area plan.
The recommendations.
Moved by Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor Arnett. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Bylaws number 11.1, water filtration plant temporary borrowing bylaw 2018 number 1931, pages 40 through 41. So the recommendation is that Council give first, second, and third readings to bylaws 1931 cited as water filtration plant temporary borrowing bylaw 2018 number 1931. This is exciting because it means that we're moving forward with the building stuff. We're spending the money, which means that we're doing something with it. Councillor Friesenhand moved, seconded by Councillor Arnett. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Property tax payments in advance of due date bylaw 2018 number 1947, pages 42 through 44 in the agenda package. And the recommendation is that Council give first, second, and third readings to bylaw 1947 cited as property tax payments in advance of due date bylaw 2018 number 1947. You knew I was having throat mumbles today, so you threw that one at me. So I just have a question. Does a system like this not already exist? Is this more from a sort of keep it clean? Because it says in the report that this is referred to in an existing bylaw. So is this just to?
There was an existing bylaw that we're just amending, but taxes, well, it wasn't until recently that people didn't prepay their taxes. Money that. Yeah, so it always has been in the calendar year, and you paid in the middle, and that was it. There weren't too many people who would voluntarily want to give more money to the town. But the interest that is earned on the funds that are placed in our deposit is tax-free, which is different from any of the other financial institution where you can earn interest. So we have to make sure that we are not taking oodles of money from people to be earning the additional funds tax-free. So we have to put the parameters of how much they can put into their tax accounts, and then just set the criteria. So we do have this existing in a pre-authorized payment plan. So those are people who are on a plan, they've agreed to have X amount of dollars taken out of their account, and they get interest. But then these are the other people who would say, I have a credit on my account from claiming a home or ground, and I just want to let that ride. Well, we should or could give that money the interest, because we are starting to earn interest now with the interest rates going up on those deposits.
Thanks. correspondence. So I just want to address the letter from Tony Beckett. I think that I don't necessarily disagree with his request, but I'm not sure we'll be successful. In the last several months, we've had multiple emails come through my desk and through the council about speed and safety throughout the corridor. Previously, there's been a focus on noise. With the way that our community is growing, I don't know if anybody else notices it, or maybe I'm just more aware of it, but it doesn't matter what intersection I'm at what time of day, there's more traffic than ever, especially in and off of the highway. When you come into Ladysmith now, past Porter's Farm, you're into like feels like a speedway in there. When you pass Thick Road, it feels tight and it feels uncomfortable. You've got a meridian in the middle, which is for safety, absolutely, and then barriers on the right-hand side. And the speeds there can be intimidating. And I'm not a laid-back driver by any means. I'll get on the speedway with anybody. But the reality is that I even notice it. And we had Viaja here, or Island Health here, just a few weeks ago, or I guess maybe even a couple months ago, saying our vehicular death rate is twice the provincial average. And having subsequent conversations with people at Island Health, they said that's not on your side streets. That's clearly highway incidents. I've sat in this office here twice and heard major accidents at this intersection, and I can tell you from what I heard and what I saw that those people weren't doing 70 kilometers an hour. So although I know it's not realistic as per Mr. Beckett's letter to reduce the speed to 50 kilometers an hour, I think that there's enough feedback from residents, there's enough proof in terms of the kinds of accidents that we've had here, all the way from Thick Road through to Christie Road. You look at the old pictures, I just saw one, the speed limit all the way from the sort of start of the downhill south of South Davis Road was 60 kilometers an hour until the highway was widened in the 1990s. And I understand that they want to keep traffic up, but if you go through North Cowichan, Duncan, those other places, they reduce the speed quite a bit through those communities. And it's in the interest of safety and the enjoyment of our community by everyone that I think we need to try and assemble all of this stuff. There was a delegation that was unfortunately canceled last week, not due to our health or missing quorum, but she wasn't feeling well. Gathering signatures on a petition about the safety on the highway. And although all of these people approach it from different angles, whether it's the noise intrusion or the safety or the general issues with traffic and advanced lights at that end and all the things that we've tried to do over the years, I think that we have enough sort of feedback and evidence to try and push harder on this. I'm willing to take it on, so I want to thank Mr. Beckett for his email. And there is a recommendation here, but frankly, I just don't think a letter is enough anymore. We've sent letters in the past and had no response. I'm willing to take it on. It's one of my things to meet with the ministers and staff about, but we could always start with a letter. So, Councillor Hutchins, Patterson, and Frey.
So first of all, we need the evidence, and when the highways came through in 1994, and we did a big presentation at Eagles Hall, and they were looking at designing a rural highway through our community of 110 kilometer speed limit with no post down the middle and shutting off all our roads except for Roberts and First Avenue at Ludlow. Basically, we knew that would have a severe impact on the well-being of our community in all regards, and so the highway was actually stalled because of our community's lack of acceptance for it for 5 years. Our money was taken to Mud Bay, I believe, up Island, and reinvested there, that money to further the redevelopment of the highway, because we would not accept that design speed and that characteristics. So highways keeps detailed accident stats. So in about 1998, I believe it was, we gathered the information of the route between, I think it was from Christie to South Davis Road, that space of area. And we had, in a 5-year period previously, we had, my memory serves me right, something like 146 accidents. 5 of those accidents were fatality accidents, causing 6 deaths. So at the same time, we asked for the information for the section near Mud Bay prior to its reconstruction. And I think they had 3 accidents, and none of them were fatality accidents. So we took that to Highways and to our MLA and said, you know, you are choosing to invest in an area because you are not willing to come to the table and design a highway that's acceptable to our community. But we had the stats to demonstrate that they have a serious safety issue. So I would like to move that we actually ask Highways for the stats for the last 5 years, and maybe for the previous 5 years to that. I think you talked about from Thick Road to Christie. And that will tell a tremendous story that will help a cause that's outlined in this letter if they're legitimate. So I'd like to move that we ask staff to contact the Ministry of Highways for the safety record of the area between Christie Road and Thick Road.
Moved by Councillor Hutchins, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I just want to mention that it was Island Health that said our vehicular deaths in our health area are twice the provincial average, but that could be elsewhere. It could be in the health area as well. So it's good to get some clarity around those numbers and put facts to the anecdotal information that we, or opinions that we have. Thank you for that. I do see the recommendation here from staff, but and someone's free to move it if they like. I wouldn't be comfortable supporting it. I just don't think that 50 kilometers through our community is likely realistic. I'd rather find some common ground based on some of the statistics that we can go to than going in that direction. Sorry, I did have Ed Patterson, then Braden, and then Arnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've noticed in the last few years, Highways is putting up those I guess they're radar-controlled, flashing your speed is sign. They have one up by Spruceton Road. They have one up at Nanoose Bay. They have one entering Courtney. Could we maybe in this request for stats also request that one of those be placed on either entrance into Ladysmith? They do have a tendency of making people aware of what they're doing, and hopefully they would slow it down. And I think probably no matter what we do is I would like to see us notify the RCMP of these concerns and South Island traffic and ask for reinforced radar, and then possibly even getting the concerned citizens, if you want to go out in relays and just drive up and down the highway doing 70 and just slow everybody down and make them aware of it.
Okay,
Or park out there and just stop them.
But I think maybe that'll be a discussion that we can come back to with the stats to a municipal services meeting and kind of formulate a list of asks and come up with something based on some facts. So unless you're making a resolution to that end, I'll say I wrote the notes down, and I think that that's something we can discuss in municipal services once we've got the data, if that's okay. Councillor Fraden?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just an addendum to what Councillor Hutchins was talking about, that perhaps maybe when we do go to Ministry of Transportation, that they do a highway design review with regarding the warrants for that, for this corridor, because they may have changed, they probably have changed since 1994, and that they should reevaluate this corridor with respect to the VPH and VPDs per day, lane separations, all that kind of stuff gathers in on how you can lower your speed zones through there. Because I think the design, I mean 1994 has been some time, and I know the designs have changed considerably since then, but I think it's something that maybe we should consider to ask Moth to take a hard look at the design out there, because the stuff I've looked at recently, and it is under design for the speeds that are dictated out there right now. So it's just something to add to that.
Yeah, the only concern I have is that the answer is to put up barriers along all our roads and say you're set. we should do that, but we just have to be smart about how we approach it and make sure that we retain access and improve safety. So that's highway design reviews. Did you say VPN and VPD?
It's your vehicles per hour.
Okay.
Per day. There's been times that when they do it, they'll actually review access points along the highway corridor and take times, and then when what the heavy usage is, like Roberts would be another heavy one, but also they review all the access points, and it's a good reason to lower the speeds. It just gives you more ammunition when you look at that. But I do think the design is probably, it's under design as per what it's for the vehicles per day it's getting.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Ahmed, I'll come back.
Well, I think Councillor Frayden brought the professional expertise in terms of analyzing the issue and how to maybe go forward. In terms of the request, I think the request to reduce speed to a safe level is appropriate. I agree with you that it's not likely to go to that level. The thing that I think about with the highway improvement since the 90s today is what you mentioned. There is way more traffic in the quarter century I've been here. You know, my wife notices it. She says, geez, when we got here, there wasn't that kind of traffic. And when the highway was built, there wasn't that kind of traffic. And the highway was actually built to promote safe travel in the end and economic development. Well, it's accomplished that in spades, I think, for the island. And then to some people's chagrin, actually, in some of the smaller communities. But I would agree with Councillor Frayden that that was then and this is now, and it literally is, you know, 20 some odd years, and I think that we could approach it from the perspective of you know, the people who have come to us with very reasonable requests over time, and it's time they were heard for sure. And safety, as we talked about before, is non-negotiable.
I just want to clarify, the 1994 plan that was presented by the Transportation Department wasn't built. It involved, as you come into the town above Transfer Beach, you go up a rise. That rise before Robert Street intersection was going to be gone. You were going to have a runway between the Lookout apartments all the way to Ludlow Road, and the dip that's before Ludlow Road would have been gone. It was just going to be level, and the roads were going to be no post on the two sides and no post down the middle. And so it was a 110-kilometer design speed limit, just like it is south of town, which is now posted at 90. What we were able to, because the town hired its own professional engineers outside, contracted out of Vancouver, and negotiated one with the streets being opened, such as Kitchener and Buller and all that type of stuff, and Gattaker, which would automatically slow the highway design. There weren't any no posts down the middle and the sides, and the humps weren't taken out, so the design speed wasn't 110 as planned. And actually I forget what it was, but it allowed for them to accept a 70-kilometer speed limit, not the 90 they wanted. So, but it's a really good point, is that 15 years later, the traffic increase, especially off our side streets, must impact the ability of the flow on the roads.
All right, so we do. Go ahead, Commissioner.
That's those are all good points, but like I said before, it's a capacity issue and the ability of that corridor to handle the number of vehicles. Like the vehicles per day and per hour have, you know, increased dramatically since 1994. So that's one thing. The ability for that highway or that corridor to handle those vehicles now is diminished quite substantially since the days of construction. So that's the big safety issue, is your capacities have gone up, but the improvements on the highway have stayed the same. So you're basically looking at, it's going to fail. I mean, they can tell you right now that the Parkway was designed, I think, I'll throw something out there, so 2005 or 2007, that it would soon hit capacity, and I believe now it already has hit capacity. You can go on there when the ferry's discharging, there's lineups at every major intersection, so they're going to have to do probably a review on that corridor, but this corridor here is way behind the times, I believe, for traffic safety.
Thank you. I don't have anyone else on my speakers list. And
traffic stats.
This is for the traffic stats,
Safety
right?
stats.
Yeah. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion carried. Letter from Doug Finlater, who's the mayor of West Kelowna, regarding cannabis sales revenue sharing. A couple emails went around this week around the other preparedness that we need, but this is an important piece, the revenue sharing.
I will second Mr. Arnett's resolution.
Is the resolution moved by Councillor Arnett?
It is so, Mayor.
Yeah, seconded by Councillor Hutchins, and this is that we write to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing requesting that 50% of the provincial share of the cannabis tax sharing formula be directed to local governments. I'm not going to hold my breath, but I will hopefully advocate, no pun intended yet. I'm glad you picked up on that. Sorry, Councillor Arnett.
Well, I just want to speak to this with respect to the fact that as you prepare, Mayor, to go to FCM, I'm hoping that there's some discussion amongst the mayors in the province that you're putting pressure on folks ahead of time as you go there. Of course, they're going to be, shortly after that, we're going to be into this, so my hope is that there's some kind of coordinated effort going forward ahead of time. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I put in the letters that are included in the agenda package. The flexibility that's given to local governments in terms of citing and other regulations is, we're thankful for that. What we're not thankful is the cost of the enforcement and developing those policies and frameworks. So I think that it's reasonable to say no more providing us the ability to provide our own legislation without some money attached to that responsibility. So definitely be advocating for that, and it's nice that we've got ABICC as well leading up to that, so it'd be a good opportunity for mayors to come together, and councillors, and share those thoughts and keep on with the federal and provincial governments. So we've done that. Can I call the question on that one? Sorry, I'm tired today. So we moved and seconded it, though. Thank you. We'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. All right, page 50, Ladysmith Family and Friends Entrance Cabinet at Aggie Hall. Recommendation is that in response to the letter from Ladysmith Family and Friends dated January 20, 2018, Council directs staff to liaise with Ladysmith Family and Friends and their associated consultants to complete an approved plan for Aggie Hall entrance enhancements.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Hutchins. Seconded by the Mayor. Oh, sorry, missed it. Got two there. I got two. Any discussion around it? Councillor Patterson.
Do we have funds set aside for this?
They got $10,000.
They have.
Yeah.
But in here, it said, where are we? The application for this was based on a plan for the Aggie Hall entrance that goes back many years when the Aggie Hall user group, Probus Town of Ladysmith. The intention was to create a beautiful, user-friendly, functional, but do we have funds to put in it?
Mr. Postings.
So, okay.
If there's something that comes back that might require funds, I'm sure Mr. Postings will come and tell us about it.
Maybe it can come from a toilet. Downtown.
Let me finish.
Okay, so that's been moved and seconded, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion carried. 12.4, Ladysmith Industrial Heritage Preservation Committee. Ladysmith Industrial Historical Society request for support for restoring the town look at the machine shop beside page 51. So that in response to Ladysmith District Historical Society's request, council direct staff to supply a front-end loader and driver to the Industrial Heritage Preservation Committee for the Historical Society to assist in the lifting of the two tumbler artifact located current base for restoration. So it rolls it over, they can put new ties under it, put it back, and clean it up, and clean up around it as per their letter. So we just got to remember, because I think under one of the next things about applying for money, we got to count all this in kind. All this in kind work. So we have a resolution moved by Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor Hutchins. Mr. Patterson, what would you like to say?
In discussions with Mr. Blackstaff, because they're having their on the 24th, their industrial heritage with LMS, their open house and stuff down there, not to do it before that, because then it would just be sitting on the ground and wouldn't look like it. So,
Yeah, we can take into advisement.
yeah. Yeah, and we might have a other piece, because we're not sure if a front end loader will pick it up.
Okay. Well, staff can work out the particulars with the group. Thank you. So that's moved and seconded. Councillor Hutchins.
Did anybody know, perhaps besides Mr. Drysdale, what that thing was all these years?
Yeah, it was used to clean the...
I know that now. Did you know it before?
Did you read the report?
I had no idea what it was for.
We're gonna have an info board on it.
It is in the heritage brochure, by the way, but it doesn't really give you the detail. All right, call the question on that. All those in favor? Opposed? Was that opposed or just laid on the in favor? None opposed, motion carries. Item 13.1, ratification of email poll regarding the Canada Summer Jobs Program. And the council ratified an earlier email poll confirming support for the following attestation for the 2018 Canada Summer Jobs Program application. Both the job and the organization's core mandate respect individual human rights in Canada, including the values underlying the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, as well as other rights. These include reproductive rights and the right to be free from discrimination on the basis of sex, religion, race, national or ethnic origin, color, mental or physical disability, or sexual orientation, or gender identity or expression. Just need a motion to ratify that. Moved by Councillor Hutchins, seconded by Councillor Fraden. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? None opposed, motion carries. 13.2, direction to apply for funds from the Island Coastal Economic Trust for Arts and Heritage Hub. An opportunity to apply for funds through the Island Coastal Economic Trust to support the development of the Arts and Heritage Hub as outlined in the new waterfront area plan, and the council authorized an application to ACE-T, as we call it for short, for up to $400,000 to support the development of the Arts and Heritage Hub in the vicinity of the machine shop on Ladysmith waterfront. Moved by Councillor Arnett, seconded by Councillor Henderson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Unfinished business, resolution to add DAB to the list of potential street names. Council recall that at the December 18th meeting, resolution was passed to add the name Bill Dab to the list of approved street names. On January 14th, 2018, Mr. Peter Dab confirmed the family's preference for the surname Dab to be used on the road named in their father's honor. So the recommendation is that council direct staff to add the name Dab to the list of approved street names as per policy 158.
So moved.
By Councillor Hutchins, seconded by Councillor Fraden. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed, motion carries. You can really not be like that. This is the worst council meeting I've ever chaired, but thanks for that.
No, I was just thinking about the street that has my name. Remember that my name was on the list?
Oh, right.
So Joanna, I want to know what that is.
Well, there was the teenagers in my house, and I was reading through the council agenda on the weekend, and there's the football player that did they call that a dab. So he's like, oh my God, you guys are so cool. You're going to name the street Dab Street? I was just like, oh, no.
We are
It's
cool,
after
huh?
a family here, not after the football player, right? So, anyway. Question period. You don't have to get up. Obviously I'm tired, so if there's no questions this evening, then that's fine. No questions? All right, well, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Fraden,